Hi, my name's Jonathan Hicks, and this evening I'm joined by
Dean. Steve.
and we've just finished playing Serengeti, which is a two-player deck builder. So like many deck builders, there's a pile of different cards that you can buy, and the theme of this one is you're kind of roaming around the savannah tracking different animals. So if I draw a hand of cards, so again like a deck, you've got your normal deck and you draw a hand of cards, and the cards have different abilities. So this one's very straightforward. If I play this card, each card has two options. You can either do the top one or the bottom one. So in this case, if I play the top one, I just draw two more cards. That's good, so I draw more cards. And these are some animals that I've previously tracked. But if I wanted to track an animal, this is the tracking thing, and then you'd have to power it with the sun. So you've turned any of your other cards face down, it becomes a sun. That powers this card, and now I can track one of these animals, which effectively means buy it and add it into my hand. So I might decide to get the lizard thing. And that goes to my discard pile. But if you keep going through these, after a while you're going to hit a rock. You see the lions are actually hiding behind the rock, because we bought a few lions, but there's always one rock in each deck, and that makes it more difficult to get some of the lions. It is possible to get the creatures when there's a rock there, but I'll get to that in a second. I've got another gazelle, so I can play that and draw two more cards. That's good. And these are more tracking things. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is at the start of each round, you draw an event. So we draw that, and this is a scorpion, which is bad. When you draw the scorpion, it adds a scorpion into your discard pile, and if you ever draw the scorpion, like at the start of your turn when you draw your hand, it advances this sort of tug-of-war thing in the middle. So if you draw a scorpion, it advances it towards your opponent's side, and depending on where it finishes, you're going to get that many points depending on if it's on your side or your opponent's side at the end of the game. But also, if you manage to get it all the way to your side, it just ends the game immediately. So that's one way in which the game can end. But you can get rid of scorpions by playing, look, I've got a, what kind of creature is this? An eagle, is it? So if I play this, you can see the bottom ability gets rid of the scorpions. We're going to power it with the sun, so I can turn the card face down, and I can power it. And that would allow me to discard the scorpion from my discard pile. So you keep going like this, playing the various cards. Although the lion's another interesting one. This requires two suns to do the top ability, and I play them like this, and that will just advance, like I was saying, the tug-of-war one space towards me. But this acquires a carcass into my deck, and whoever has the most of these at the end of the game loses 2 points. That's bad. Notice at the bottom this is a 4-sun. That's a lot of powering required there, but this will let you take the lion and put it over here. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most lions in this section here gets 3 points. That's another way you can score points. But effectively, you just go through playing all your cards. At the end of your turn, like any normal deck builder, you discard them all, and it's the next person's go, and you just draw it for your next turn. In terms of other abilities, the giraffe will let you look at a couple of cards on top of the deck, so you could look at, for instance, the event deck here, or if you power it, you can buy a card and stick it on top of your deck, which is handy. The monkey lets you copy powers of other cards. The gecko is one way you can get cards from behind the rock, so you sort of play this and you can actually get the card that's immediately behind the rock. Incidentally, your default starting cards also have an ability to let you sort of move the card that's underneath the rock one up. What's hiding under here? We've got elephants. Elephants can be used to scare away your opponent's lions, so that's quite handy. Or you can sort of store them up to get more cards for your next turn. So you can see there's various different abilities on the various different cards. It's the same set. There are no other cards than this. It's a fairly small game in that sense. You're always playing with the same sets, but there's quite a lot of potential interaction with different kinds of abilities, and obviously you've got to pay attention to the number of suns that are required. So you play, as I say, until the tug-of-war ends, or if you get through the event deck, whatever event is drawn will affect me on my turn, and then the same event affects your opponent on their turn. And then it goes away, and we get the next event, which will affect me, and then the opponent. In this case, this means lions can't be bought on the next round. So once the game ends, you count up all your points, and most points wins. What do we think?
It's difficult to say. I think the tug-of-war is supposed to be a key part of this, but in the game we played, we, to all intents and purposes, ignored it. Or I ignored it. I think the problem I have with it is that your starting hand, the card stake, actually still quite powerful, because every card is worth only 1 sun. So even your starting hand is worth only 1 sun. There isn't anything that is worth 2 suns when you're powering things. So I think the starting cards, unlike most deck builders, the starting cards don't really lose their power. I tended to find towards the end of the game I was still using the starting cards as the main cards I was playing. So I'm not quite sure the balance between the starting cards and the special powers is distinct enough. I don't know whether I'd play it again. The iconography is a little bit too small and fiddly for me at the moment. That's probably because I didn't bring my reading glasses, which will explain everything. It's a nice looking game. I'm not sure. I think I probably need to play it another couple of times before I can make a solid judgment on it, because it could just be the way we played it that time. But it didn't feel very interactive to me.
Okay, Steve?
Like what Dean said, it does look nice. I think the art's very nice. It's kind of pseudo black and white-esque things, and it looks pretty on the game. And a two-player deck builder, there aren't many of those specifically. And if you think deck builders are too complicated with all the different hundreds of cards Dominion's got, it's just got 8. It's quite nice. It's quite nice as well at the rocks. You kind of go through the decks, hit the rocks, and then your options technically become limited. Although in every game I've seen, you just don't seem to get that many rocks out. I think the most I've ever seen is 3 before the game's ended through one of the other win conditions. The other bit I like in terms of, I'm not saying necessarily it worked the way I thought it might, but like using cards from your hand to power up other cards. Like Dean said, maybe some cards may be worth 2 suns on the back or something like that, but then you'd know they were coming up. I don't know, but like choosing, I've got this card or this card, well this could power this or this could power this, and you've got that choice between what to do and what not to do. There was one rule, I've read the rules a few times, and so has Matt, and we couldn't decide whether it was the way I initially said it or the way I think it probably should be done. Which made one particular strategy quite dominant. And every game I've seen, the person who's kind of got the gazelles and cycled through their deck just seems to have much more power and much longer turns than the opposition. I think I played earlier where my opponent had like close to like a 4 or 5 minute go. I might be exaggerating there. Whereas if it's the way I think it should be done, maybe that would affect you more because you'd hit your scorpions quicker. I don't like deck builders generally, so it's not a genre of game that appeals to me. So I don't think I'd play this much more than maybe another time.
Rating?
Looks nice, doesn't play as elegant as I possibly thought it might do, so I'm going to rate it a 5.
Okay. Dean?
On that first play, I'd give it a 4. That could be based on the way the game went, but I'd score it a 4.
Okay. Yeah, I like the artwork. I like deck builders in general, although there are so many deck builders now, you kind of need a deck builder to do something a bit different. And the fact that this is a 2-player deck builder is quite interesting. And I like the fact, as Steve was saying, that you're using the cards, like you just turn them over to power the other cards. That's interesting. It does feel like the gazelles is rather overpowered, because you just keep playing gazelles and gazelles, and each turn you're drawing your entire deck into your hand. And one thing I didn't mention is at the end of the game you're getting a point for majorities in each of the animals. So if you have more elephants, you get a point. If you've got more giraffes than your opponent, you get a point. So you can draw an awful lot of cards that way. But I guess if you both know that, you're both just going to be fighting over the gazelles. It's fairly simple, probably a little bit too simple for me, and I don't know that it really offers much more in terms of deck building than I've seen anywhere else. But I think it's fine. I'd probably be on a 6 out of 10. All right, thanks for watching. That was Serengeti.